Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen Buerta, for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
Right. And I appreciate you sharing, your story and your journey and, your personal reflections with us. I want to just add maybe a follow-up to just a little bit specific on what you just illustrated to us is many folks that are serving time have had a history from very young age, right? So like almost like repeat crimes, repeat offenders, right? So in and out, in and out, in and out from, juvenile all the way up. So when you have cases like you're describing that you were kind of like the all-American boy, right? You described yourself as, I don't know if your mom was present, but you described your dad and your older brother, right?
Both. Yep.
So two-parent household, older brother, gone to school, education, fully supported, what you said, supportive environment. The only thing that I heard that was like just that you shared was the weight issue, that you were, a heavier child or chunkier child, and that was an issue. So I guess my question is, and I appreciate having this conversation because it's not every day that we have, opportunities like this. So I appreciate you. Is, when you see, and we see, people that watch the news or people that like, people in society, I mean, doctors, lawyers, teachers, educators, that like one quote unquote move or action now takes them down this path, right, of now being incarcerated. So as opposed to people growing up in the system. So do you think there's a difference, for example, of folks that have kind of been in and out like from a young age, as opposed to somebody like you that I'm looking at as a kind of an all-American guy, right? Like all-American, two-parent household, went to school, and what was that turning point, I guess, as opposed to somebody growing up in the system?
Well, speaking for the repeat offenders, there's definitely like the demographics inside of a prison. It's pretty glaring. Like there's certain environments and cultures that people have less of a positive chance. So I will say that there's definitely more. It's like, well, yeah, you didn't have any of these things. Of course, this was what you wound up doing. You had to fend for yourself, and there's no way to get money. Certainly not giving them an out. Like, well, I agree with it. I'm never going to agree with what any of us have ever done. But to pivot back to me, yeah, it's been one of the most glaringly annoying things for many people to look at my situation and say, how did you, like, why, what didn't you have? And I will never blame anyone. It wasn't my mom or my dad. They were beyond amazing, still are, ridiculously loving, ridiculously supporting, always there. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. Like, you're right, short of like the all-American thing, like maybe a chubby version of that. But my brother was kind. My brother was caring. He's still there. He's allowed me to keep a relationship with his two sons, my nephews. The thing that it is, and I'm without a doubt able to say this, it was where my relationship with my value was found. My mom and dad told me I had value, that I was hilarious and I was smart and that I was successful, that I'm doing well. But if your own self-talk is, well, at the end of every night, I'm usually sitting here alone because I'm overweight. So now my self-esteem is down. And I'm not blaming my crime on my weight. I'm trying to point out, like, until you have a relationship with, in my case, the Lord, like, and Shireen mentioned, like, she knows there's something that has kept her here, that has guided her and protected her. If you don't ever have that thought, it allows for a lot of evil, dangerous thoughts to slip in. And it's usually in those moments of solitude and where you're alone. Like, I always say that the devil talks in questions and God talks in statements. Like, are you really loved? Do you actually think anybody will ever be around you? Do you think they really think you're special? Whereas God is like, you are loved, you are perfect, you are made in my image. And so for me, it was a lot of that negative self-talk that just kept driving me towards what feels good. And in my mind, what felt good was attention. So how do I get a little bit of attention? I do this. Well, if I do a little more of it, I get a lot more. And then I get more on a grander stage. I started chasing after a feeling instead of leaning into the truth, which big component there. Feelings change nonstop.
Hmm.
Truth doesn't, never will.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear what you're, and my follow-up on it, I said there was two questions. So the other one is the, and again, having just studied criminal justice just from from that point of view, from like book learned, the recidivism rate, and for our listeners out there that may not be aware of that, people that serve their time, get free, back in again, and there's the very high recidivism rate in the United States with the prison system. So, and I hear like most people, as far as you sharing your story, as far as what you've shared, you're in a cell this big and you actually develop some type of nervous tick, just because you're almost like literally going out of your mind, or I'm paraphrasing what you said. In your opinion, when people are in that environment and they do get free, get out, and they're back in within 30 days, do you, how can you subjectively articulate what has happened? Is it that, I've heard and I've read and I've researched that the comfort level is that they know how to, where to, it's like, I don't want to say it's like the military, but everything is very structured, I'm assuming, right? It's from what I've read. So is that the environment that, even though as how bad it may be to everybody on the outside, is it become a comfort that you do have a support system within? And I'm not saying this is your case, I'm just sharing, asking in questioning other inmates that maybe you've seen go and then come back. What is your perception on that?
Well, I would say a very small, what you've said is true for some, very, very small. Like, it is easy if there's someone who wants to just be really, really lazy. I don't want to work. I want someone to bring me my food. I don't want to do laundry. And here they force people around me, so I already have my social circle. There might be the very few ones who are like, they're more comfortable inside. They become that institutionalized. I've yet to come across any of my friends, because I would love and help and serve and talk and pray for anybody inside, but you still kind of hang out with like-minded people. I'm not going to spend my time with someone who just wants to sit in a cell, complain, moan, watch TV, and have everything handed to them. For the most part that I've experienced, and which is why Not My Will Ministries is put in place, is in order to be successful in the community, you have to have one, that heart switch, that mind switch. Like, you have to recognize you put yourself in there. Why? Let's work on it. Let's identify it, so that when you get your chance, you're going to make decisions differently. You're not going to make every selfish decision. You're going to think, how does this impact the person in front of me, my environment, my community? But on top of that, like, I don't know your family situation, but if you were to go away for 5 years, and let's say you could only have one, maybe two phone calls a month for 20 minutes max at a time, that's it. How well are you staying supported? Are you staying connected? When you go to come out, who really knows how you've been living? How are they going to be able to support you? Who are you going to call and say, hey, I'm coming out in August of 2024. I need a job. Where am I going to live? Do I even have clothes left? This is my size, I think, because I'm wearing elastic clothes. Is there a church I can plug into? If you take away someone's support system, when they go to get out, they have $0. They gave us $100 debit card when you leave. $100, Tanya. Good luck. Like, bus pass $40, McDonald's 12. Like, you're done by noon. No clothes, no change of underwear. Those situations, if you don't have a family to come and pick you up and be like, hey man, I got you. Here's some clothes, here's some money. That's what my ministry is doing, is taking in opportunities to support them mightily while they're inside, but then to help them as they transition out. Because as best of your intentions, if Monday you get out and Tuesday you don't have a place to live and you're out of money, eventually you're going to get cold. So you're going to break into a house, or you're going to get hungry, so you're going to steal. Well, those are two parole revoking decisions. So you're back in prison. And a lot of it is our own responsibility, but it's also a real bad situation. Like what are you supposed to do? What should I or could I have done if you have nothing when you walk out? It's tragic. And so when I hear the people like, I just do better in prison, then you should have asked to not even come out, so that someone who does want that opportunity can maybe get some face time with the decision makers. But that's the best way I can explain it, is being released and being successful starts long before, long before, before you even sniff the idea of coming out of those walls.
Yeah. Yeah. And my last question before I turn it back to Shireen, the day that you got out, what was, like, and I can imagine, or I can only imagine, I say, what was that feeling like, what you had prepared for in your mind as opposed to what you actually experienced? Was it, I mean, I've heard the word like, culture shock, reverse culture shock. Like, what is it like? What is that like? I mean, because I've read about different positioning.
Yeah, I'll try to answer as well. I always answer honestly, but as thoroughly and succinctly. I got out May 27th, 2020. And one of the first things that really hit me was like May 26th, 2020, I had to follow all the prison rules. I had to stand and get counted, show my ID. If I took a pill, I had to swipe my mouth so they didn't think I was cheeking the medicine. I had to use a plastic spork. May 27th, when I walk out, I can go to Outback and eat a steak with a steak knife. No one's counting me. Like, the dichotomy of a night's sleep, Tanya, was so weird. Like, May 26th, I'm so dangerous, I have to use a plastic spork. And I get it, because there's other people around. But May 27th, they're like, see ya. So it was very much like, what have I just been living through for the last 7 years, to where now I'm okay. Terrified, not letting the community around me 12 hours ago go to Walmart. That's so weird. I can't put enough examples into it. Like, it's just shocking. Like, I guess I'm just going to walk through any door now, where in prison you have to stand and wait for it to be buzzed. It was full of massive amounts of excitement and the same level of also like fear. I got sick, like stomach ache sick, riding in the back of a van, because I hadn't went faster than a jog for 7 years. And now I'm going down the interstate at 80 miles an hour. Like, that's weird. I'm usually a pretty social person. There's not anybody I cannot engage with and communicate with and probably build a pretty good friendship with real quick, which was probably one of the blessings of how I was able to do prison successfully. I made it about 15 minutes inside a Walmart the first time I went. There were so many people, so many noises. And in prison, you very quickly learn, like, respect is huge. Like, I'm not ever going to reach across someone in prison, certainly not going to grab something right out of in front of them, because that could be a sign of disrespect. And now you're having to fight when really you just wanted the softball bat or the pepper off the table. People were reaching across from me, grabbing Cheetos in front of me, butting their cart. And it got so overwhelming that I just left. I just left Walmart and I went out in the car and was like, okay, well, that's different. Super weird. So it is a massive culture shock. It was really exciting. The coolest part came about 9, 10 months later when I got to go home. I'm from Nebraska. And so they still didn't let me leave the state for a while. Now I can, thank God. But when they finally were like, hey, go home, walking into my front door, seeing my mom, seeing my dad, giving them a hug, seeing the old photos, seeing the photos I sent of me and some of my prison friends. Like, there's no words to describe that, because that was the year 2021 at this point. Not only was I supposed to be in prison until 2032, if you remember, I sat in that protective custody hearing with the big beard, and I actually asked for them to hide me until 2032. Like, thank God I wasn't the smartest person in that room and I didn't get what I wanted, because I was stepping into my childhood home 13 years early.
Right.
That was like the biggest moment of, okay, I get to hug you guys in the free world instead of with an officer watching me hug my mom and counting. You can only hug for 3 seconds and let go. The rules are, we could talk for another 5 hours about the ridiculousness of some of these
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just amazing though, just to hear your journey and what your mission is, which we can allow you the time to talk about that. I had also, had studied as far as even like what you're describing, like for example, colors, right? Like you described, like going into Walmart. So it's even like people who've been hospitalized for a long time, they get used to a very certain color scheme, like very, in the hospital setting. And I've heard there's some parallels in a prison setting also. Then when you're free, all of a sudden it's like it's culture shock, even based on colors that you see and that you experience. Is that something that you experienced too?
Yeah, my last two prisons that I was at for 6 years had the blessing of, there was actually a yard. Like, there was softball fields with grass and trees. The first two that I was at had no grass and no trees. And so even that shift of, there's some people who are serving decades who don't ever get to see a tree.
Right.
I wore the same green outfit every day that every other person in Colorado wears: white undershirt, green, whatever weird fabric it is, shirt and pants every day. So when you see that every day and you come out, and even like looking at all the colors you have behind you, like there's so many things like, yep, never would have seen that, couldn't have seen that. They would have made us get rid of that, because if you could even bleed out some of the red, you could use that as tattoo ink. And so they eliminate like so many beautiful things that it does become that bit of a shock. Smells, like you're in a men's prison, the female guards aren't going to be wearing very great fragrances because they don't want that attention. And I'm pretty sure they've been told, hey, just hair up, you're a guard, you're not really a woman in here right now. Guard first, woman second. Going out and smelling like, holy cow, women smell great. Okay, where's that been for 7 years? One of the weirdest things that's happened to me is I didn't see the sun a whole heck of a lot, but like in like little spurts. And after that 6 months, when I didn't get outside but maybe twice in 6 months, I've never shared this on any interview or podcast ever. If I walk outside and it's sunny, and if I look up just a little bit, I sneeze every time. Like, I've actually become like allergic to the immediate look at the sun,
Right.
which I don't know if other people do that, but it's really weird. Like, when did this start?
Actually funny. That's actually like a reflex. If you want to induce a sneeze, you're supposed to look at the sun, and it has that motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
Completely.
it works.
Right.
Never done it before I got out of the first place.
All right,
wow.
guys, I'm going to have to stop you here. We've come to the end of the podcast already, and we've still got one fun question just to go around. But I just wanted to, more importantly, end on your nonprofits, because as a business owner, you've gone through all the struggles you've been through and how you've overcome them, right? And now we want to ask, how we can help you. And so, my listeners, just so you know, there is definitely a place where you can go and assist RJ. by just donating a little bit of something. So please go to his website. We have all his information in the show notes. Click on the word donate, the donate button, and help families just reunite. Commit to $50 a month and step into real life changing work. And that's with Not My Will Ministries homepage, which we'll have in the show notes. Okay, so take the time and give back to, give back to the community and the life behind bars, which these guys definitely need that support.
Yep.
Coming to the end, we have a quick question, a little bit more lighthearted, right? And we're in the autumn, fall season of the year. So I just want to find out from each of you before we end the podcast, just what is your favorite part of fall? Hashtag autumn, because we call it autumn, we don't call it fall. But yes, what is your favorite? Go ahead.
I'll start. Mine is walking. I love walking. Leaves are changing. That's great. That's beautiful. But just being outside, and there's obviously the parallel of not able to be outside, being outside, going for long walks, smelling the smells that we just talked about, and just enjoying. I don't really like snow, but I'll say enjoying somewhat of the cold breeze, things like that. That's an awfully sentimental answer, but quick answer, just being outside and walking. I could do that for hours.
Love that. Tanya, what about yourself?
Very nice. So born and raised in Connecticut, we had the Four Seasons back there. Now being right outside of Miami, we do have our own version of fall. So the temperature goes from like 85 to maybe 70 degrees Fahrenheit. We do get a little bit of the crisper days, and there are certain grasses and flowers that grow in the fall time. So I would say the overall, just the change for the crispness, the change. I do have some reminiscence back in Connecticut days with the harvest and I would just like use the farms. I'm sure they have them here. I just don't venture out too much. So I just think the whole, the hay, barrels of hay, having the corn mazes, things of that, just the iconic image when I think of New England in the fall.
Nice.
And you, Shereen?
Yeah, mine's quick. It's pumpkin spice lattes and a crackling fire. That's it.
So RJ, I got to tell you this before Shireen cuts us off over here. So she's in South Africa, right? So I always tell her, I said, can't you be behind a window? Because she says that they have like, what do you call them? The monkeys? Shireen, what's the word? What is the word?
Those
the little
monkeys. Vervet monkeys.
Yeah, so I say, isn't that, I mean, we should have like, I want a full on view of what's happening in Africa. Like that's normal landscape for her. Shireen, did you say you have squirrels there or you don't have squirrels?
It depends on what parts of South Africa you're in. So yes, we get squirrels more on the Cape side of things, but when I'm living here, we get monkeys.
Oh,
yeah. So it's like culture shock, even as much as I talk to Shireen, which sometimes it's multiple times a day. One time she said she was going hiking and I imagined a forest, like you're going in a rainforest. And she was in another part of South Africa. She's like, Tanya, it's desert here. I'm like, note to self. She's part of the world, it's just everyone's experience is just so different, just even where she sits, what she looks out, and I appreciate you so much, RJ, just for sharing your journey and your mission. And so if I may ask as a concluding moment, in addition to financial support for your not-for-profit, what are the ways people can reach you or support you in your mission?
Yeah, appreciate it. And thank you, Shireen, for having me on and helping people get to the right spot to donate money to help families inside communicate with their loved ones so they can come out and be successful. That's the goal behind it. Connect families and communities. The other way is if someone's heard this, or if there's a listener who would like for me to come and speak at their men's group or at their business or Rotary or church, I'll happily have that conversation. I'd love to come and share in any community. There's a book an event. There's a contact me page on the same website. You can get to my book on the website if someone wants to read about all of the trajectory from A to Z and all the things in the middle. That's in there. And then that paints a little bit more of a picture of what I share when I go and either share at a church or share at a business, share inside of the prison. So that'd be the other way. That would be awfully helpful, because that helps spread that God's still in the miracle business, and there's a lot of people inside who are amazing and should be deserving of love.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much. And to the listeners, we appreciate you so much. If you want to find us, friendsfromwildplaces.buzzsprout.com is our website. Please go do all the things, share, like, and give us a little bit of feedback. Tell us if you enjoyed the show and what you thought. All comments are welcome here. And so with that, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time, guys. And remember, you got this, and stay wild. Bye.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.